Good morning, fourth graders. So today, after you've finished your questions on chapters 27 through 32, I want you to read chapters 33 through 40. You can read it on your own before you listen along with me, but please listen along with me as we'll talk about some things throughout the story, and we'll talk about some of the vocabulary words and things like that. So here is chapter 33. It is called The Arrival. So up to this point, Stella had told us a story about Yambo, and they were talking about this change that they noticed. This change that was coming, something was coming to the Big Top Mall. Stella seems to think it's another elephant. The new neighbor arrives after the 4 o'clock show. When the truck comes lumbering toward the parking lot, Bob scampers over to inform us. Bob always knows what's happening. He's a useful friend to have, especially when you can't leave your domain. Because, Bob gets to roam wherever. He can come and go as he pleases, so he gets to get all the gossip from everyone. With a groan, Mac lifts the sliding metal door near the food court, the place where the deliveries are made. A big white truck is backing up to the door, belching smoke. Belching like a burp. It's burping smoke. What do we call that when we give a human characteristic to something that's not human? So the truck burping is something that a human would do, not a truck. It's a characteristic of a person. Personification. When the driver opens the truck, I know that Stella is right. A baby elephant is inside. I see her trunk poking out from the blackness. I'm glad for Stella, but when I glance at her, I see she is not glad at all. I wonder why Stella wouldn't be happy that a new elephant was arriving. You think she's jealous? She doesn't seem like the type to get jealous. Do you think she's nervous? Maybe people aren't going to like her anymore? It kind of goes with not being jealous. Do you think she's sad that another elephant is going to have to live at the Big Top Mall instead of being in that zoo? When she told the story of Yambo, she talked about what a zoo was, according to Stella, of how it was a place where there were good humans and plenty of food and plenty of room to roam. And that would be her wish for any animal, right? But instead, this baby elephant is coming to the Big Top Mall. Stand back, everyone, Mac yells. We've got a new arrival. This is Ruby, folks. 600 pounds, that's a lot, of fun to save our sorry butts. This gal is going to sell some tickets. So he said Ivan wasn't selling enough tickets. Stella wasn't selling enough tickets. A baby elephant. That's going to do it. Mac and 2 men climb into the black cave of the truck. Comparing the back of the truck that's dark to a cave without using light. Metaphor. We hear noise, scuffling, a word Mac uses when he's angry. Ruby makes a noise too, like one of the little trumpets they sell at the gift store. So I immediately know what that cute little baby elephant sound is. Makes the sound of a little trumpet. It used the word like one of the little trumpets. So it's a simile. Move, Mac says, but still there is no Ruby. Move, he says again. We haven't got all day. Inside her domain, Stella paces as much as she's able. 2 steps one way, 2 steps the other. She slaps her trunk against rusty metal bars. She grumbles. Stella, I ask, did you hear the baby? Stella mutters something under her breath, a word she uses when she's angry. Relax, Stella, I say. It will be okay. Ivan, Stella says, it will never, ever be okay. And I know enough to stop talking. The men are still yelling. This is called Stella Helps. The men are still yelling. Some of the yelling is at each other, but most of it is at Ruby. We hear scrambling, pounding, shifting. The side of the truck shudders. I'm starting to like this elephant, Bob whispers. Because, before now, Bob's the one that causes the commotion. I'm getting the big one, Mac says. Maybe she can coax the stupid brat out of the truck. So Mac is definitely getting frustrated that Ruby won't come out. He says he's going to get Stella to coax the baby out. If Stella coaxes her out, she's convincing her to come out of the truck. Mac opens Stella's door. Come on, girl, he urges. He unties the rope attached to the floor bolt. Stella pushes past Mac, nearly knocking him over. She's very frustrated. Can't you tell? She rushes as best she can, limping heavily toward the open back door of the truck. She catches her swollen foot on the edge of the ramp and winces, like when you hit your toe and you go, ooh. That's what she's done, except when she stubbed her toe on the ramp of the truck, it causes blood to trickle down her foot. Halfway up the ramp, she pauses. The noise in the truck stops. Ruby falls silent. Slowly, Stella makes her way up the rest of the ramp. It groans under her weight. It's a sensory word. That ramp is not particularly happy that this heavy elephant is on it. I can tell how much she is hurting by the awkward way she moves. At the top of the incline, she stops. She pokes her trunk into the emptiness. We wait. The tiny gray trunk appears again. Shyly, it reaches out, tasting the air. Stella curls her own trunk around the baby's. They make soft, rumbling sounds. We wait some more. A hush falls over the entire Big Top Mall. Thud, thud. Step, step, pause. Step, step, pause. And there she is, so small she can fit underneath Stella with room to spare. Her skin sags, and she sways unsteadily as she makes her way down the ramp. Not the greatest specimen, Mac says, but I got her cheap from this bankrupt circus out west. They had her shipped over from Africa. Only had her a month before they went bust. He gestures towards Ruby. Thing is, people love babies. Baby elephants, baby gorillas. Heck, give me a baby alligator and I could make a killing. And what he's saying isn't far from wrong. That's a theme we've seen before, that people love babies. Baby puppies, baby piglets, baby fudge from the Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. So there's something about babies. Do you have a younger baby brother or sister or cousin that everybody just, gushes over? Or maybe you have a new baby puppy or a baby kitten and people give it attention. Well, that's exactly what Mac is playing off of. The theme that people love babies. Baby anything. Stella ushers Ruby toward her domain. Mac and the two men follow. At Stella's door, Ruby hesitates. She doesn't want to go in. Mac gives Ruby a shove, but she doesn't budge. Doggone it, get a clue. Ruby, he mutters. But Ruby isn't moving, and neither is Stella. Mac grabs a broom. He raises it. He's going to hit Ruby or do something to try to convince her to go in. So he says, get in the cage, both of you. As soon as he raises the broom, Stella steps in front of Ruby to shield her, to protect her. So now Stella has somebody to protect. Wonder if Ivan's ever going to get to that point and maybe protect her too. Stella stares at Mac like she's debating. She's considering doing something she shouldn't. Gently but firmly, using her trunk, she nudges Ruby into her domain. Only then does Stella enter. Mac slams the door shut with a clang. So, not just any old sound, not a calm, quiet close. He swings the door shut, slams it and locks it. Imagine metal hitting metal, that clang that it makes. Sensory word, clang. I see two trunks entwined. I hear Stella whispering. Poor kid, says Bob. Welcome to the Exit 8 Big Top Mall and Video Arcade, home of the one and only Ivan. They said she was very skinny. She probably wasn't getting enough food, especially if the circus that she was at for that month was going bankrupt. They didn't have enough money to get food for the elephants or any of the animals. Chapter 35 is called Old News. When Julia comes, she sits by Stella's domain and watches the new baby. She barely talks to me. So who is Old News? Ivan, perhaps, is feeling that way. Stella doesn't talk to me either. She's too busy nuzzling Ruby. Okay, so maybe Ivan is feeling that way. She is cute, little Ruby, with her ears flapping like palm leaves. It's comparing her ears to palm leaves blowing. Use the word like to do that comparison. Simile. But I, Ivan, am handsome and strong. So he's getting just a little bit jealous. Bob trots a circle around my belly before settling down in just the right spot. Give it up, Ivan, he says. You're old news. Julia gets out a piece of paper and a pencil. I can see that she is drawing Ruby. I move to the corner of my domain to pout. Bob grumbles. He doesn't like it when I disrupt his naps. And moving certainly did that. Homework, Julia's father scolds. Ooh, there's that vocabulary word again, scolds. He's fussing at her. No more drawing. Do your homework. Julia sighs, as frequently happens with homework, and puts her drawing aside. I grunt, and Julia glances in my direction. Poor old Ivan, she says. I've been ignoring you, haven't I? I grunt again, a dignified, indifferent grunt. Julia thinks for a moment, then smiles. She walks over to my domain, to the spot in the corner where the glass is broken. She slides papers through. She rolls a pencil across my cement floor. You can draw the baby elephant, too, Julia says. I bite the pencil in half with my magnificent teeth. Then I eat some paper. In other words, she's saying, I don't want to draw the baby elephant. Maybe he is a little jealous. Chapter 36 is called Tricks. Even after Julia and her father leave, I try to keep sulking, but it's no use. Gorillas are not, by nature, pouters. Stella, I call. It's a full moon. Did you see? Sometimes, when we are lucky, we catch a glimpse of the moon through the skylight in the food court. I did, Stella says. She's whispering, and I realize that Ruby must be asleep. Is Ruby all right? I ask. She's too thin, Stella says. Poor baby. She was in that truck for days. Mac bought her from a circus the same way he bought me. But she hadn't been there long. She was born in the wild, like us. So in a month, she got too thin. Will she be okay, I ask? Stella doesn't answer my question. The circus trainers chained her to the floor, Ivan. All 4 feet. 23 hours a day. Now think about that. There are 24 hours in one day. They chained her for 23. So she had 1 hour that she was not chained up. Do you think that might be how Stella got her scars? The same treatment? I puzzle over why this would be a good idea. I always try to give humans the benefit of the doubt, meaning he tries to trust them until they do something to make him not trust them. Why would they do that? I finally ask her. To break her spirit, Stella says. They wanted to make her feel like she had no hope, so she could learn to balance on a pedestal, so she could stand on her hind legs, so a dog could jump on her back while she walked in mindless circles. So do we think Stella may be talking about herself here too? Do you think they tried to break Stella's spirit? She has scars on her ankles. She balances on a pedestal. She stands on her hind legs. And Snickers the dog jumps on her back while she walks, as she puts it, in mindless circles, meaning she's not enjoying herself, is she? I hear her tired voice, and I think of all the tricks Stella has learned. Maybe now he's getting over his his jealousy just a little bit. Next chapter is called Introductions. When I awake the next morning, I see a little trunk poking out between the bars of Stella's domain. "Hello," says a small, clear voice. "I'm Ruby." She waves her trunk. "Hello," I say. "I'm Ivan." "Are you a monkey?" Ruby asks. "Certainly not." And definitely not a chimpanzee, right? Because he hates chimpanzees. Bob's ears perk up, although his eyes stay closed. "He's a gorilla," he says, "and I'm a dog of uncertain heritage," meaning he doesn't know what type of dog he is, right? We might call those a Heinz 57 or a mutt. Or in my case, a cute baby rescue puppy like my babies, because they have uncertain heritage as well. "Why did the dog climb your tummy?" Ruby asks. "Because it's there," Bob murmurs. "And why wouldn't he climb it?" "Is Stella awake?" I ask. "Aunt Stella's asleep," Ruby says. "Her foot is hurting, I think." Ruby turns her head. Her eyes are like Stella's. Ooh, listen to this description. It's beautiful. Black and long lashed, so she's got long eyelashes. Bottomless lakes, fringed by tall grass. So it doesn't use the word like or as, but it does compare her eyes to lakes surrounded by tall grass. So her eyelashes would be the tall grass. Her eyes would be the bottomless lakes. Isn't that a beautiful way to describe eyes? It's a metaphor, right? Doesn't use like or as. "When is breakfast?" she asks. "Soon," I say, "when the mall opens and the workers come." "Where?" Ruby twists her head in the other direction. "Where are the other elephants?" "It's just you and Stella," I say. And for some reason, I feel we've let her down. So Ivan has heard Stella talk about a zoo, a place where humans make amends. He knows about a zoo where there's others of your kind, other elephants and gorillas. But here it's just the two of them. And he instantly feels like he's done something not quite right for Ruby. "Are there more of you?" she asks. "Not," I say, "at the moment." Ruby picks up a piece of hay and considers it. "Do you have a mom and dad?" "Well, I used to." "Everyone has parents," Bob explains. "It's unavoidable." "Before the circus, I used to live with my mom and my aunts and my sisters and my cousins," Ruby says. She drops the hay, picks it up, twirls it. They're dead. So something happened in the wild that causes Ruby's family to die, and Ruby gets captured and brought to a circus. I don't know what to say. I'm not really enjoying this conversation, but I can see that Ruby isn't done talking. To be polite, I say, "I'm sorry to hear that, Ruby." "Humans killed them," she says. "Who else?" Bob asks. Remember, he's not tactful. He says what he thinks. And Bob does not trust humans. So he's not shocked by this discovery. Stella and Ruby. All morning, Stella strokes Ruby, pats her, smells her. They flap their ears, they rumble and roar, they sway as if they're dancing. Ruby clings to Stella's tail. She slips under Stella's belly. Sometimes they just lean into each other, their trunks twirled together like jungle vines. Twirled together like jungle vines. So there's our simile. Stella looks so happy. It's more fun to watch than any nature show I've ever seen on TV. All right, chapter 39, home of the one and only Ivan. George and Mac are out by the highway. I can see them through one of my windows. They are next to each other on a tall wooden ladder, leaning against the billboard that tells the cars to stop and visit the one and only Ivan, mighty Silverback. George has a bucket and a long-handled broom. Mac has pieces of paper. He slaps one against the billboard. George dips the broom into the bucket. He wets the paper with the liquid from the bucket, and somehow the paper stays in place. So what is George using in the bucket? We can make an inference here. If it's liquid and he's putting it on paper and it makes the paper stick or stay in place, it's a big bucket of glue, right? They put up many pieces before they are done. When they climb down from the ladders, I see that they've added a picture of a little elephant to the billboard. The elephant has a lopsided smile. She is wearing a red hat. Oh, red like Ruby. Ruby red hat. Maybe. And her tail curls like a pig's. She doesn't look like Ruby. She doesn't even look like an elephant. I've only known Ruby one day, and I could have drawn her better. And this is our last chapter. This is chapter 40. It's called Art Lesson. Ruby asks a lot of questions. She says, Ivan, why is your tummy so big? And have you ever seen a green giraffe? And can you get me one of those pink clouds that the humans are eating? What are those pink clouds? Cotton candy. When Ruby asks, what is that on your wall? I explain that it's a jungle. She says the flowers have no scent, and the waterfall has no water, and the trees have no roots. I am aware of that, I say. It's art, a picture made with paint. Do you know how to make art? Ruby asks. Yes, I do. And I puff up my chest just a little. I've always been an artist. I love drawing. Why do you love it? Ruby asks. I pause. I've never talked to anyone about this before. When I'm drawing a picture, I feel quiet inside. Is there anything you do that when you do it, you enjoy it so much that it just kind of calms you down? For me, and I'm sure this is going to shock you, it's reading, because I love to read. Reading is my drawing that Ivan has. Ruby frowns. Quiet is boring. Not always, I tell her. Ruby scratches the back of her neck with her trunk. What do you draw, anyway? Bananas, mostly. Things in my domain. My drawings sell at the gift store for $25 a piece, with frame. So you can get a framed picture of his drawing for $25. What's a frame? Ruby asks. What's $1? What's a gift store? Have you ever been around a toddler who's just learning to talk and ask questions? They have questions about everything they see. That's kind of where Ruby is right now. I close my eyes. I'm a little sleepy, Ruby. Have you ever driven a truck? Ruby asks. I don't answer that question. Ivan, Ruby asks, can Bob fly? A memory flashes past, surprising me, because remember, Ivan doesn't remember. But something Ruby says or does causes him to have a memory. I think of my father snoring peacefully under the sun while I try every trick I know to wake him up. Perhaps I realize he wasn't really such a sound sleeper after all. So Ivan is thinking maybe Dad was pretending to sleep to avoid all the questions that Ivan had as a young gorilla. So there we have Ruby introduced. And boy, she is full of life and full of questions. And Ivan and Stella and Bob are all seeming to get attached to and maybe, just maybe, fall in love with this new addition to the Big Top Mall. We will discuss more of Miss Ruby and her addition to Big Top Mall on Monday. And keep reading The One and Only Ivan. We are about halfway through with our book now. And it is getting ready to get a little sad and then get really good and end with this spectacular ending. And I think you're going to like it. All right, guys, have a wonderful weekend, and I will talk to you and see you on Monday.